right now the gap is that not enough people are educating people on the topic of neurodiversity. And even if there are some people who are educating people, they are just touching on what it is. In schools, you find that neurodiverse children are not allowed to take part in sports, or they are excluded from certain extramural activities. Some of these neurodiverse people are employed by virtue of the company wanting to maximize BEE points, for example.
Yes. Welcome to the Diversity, Equity and Inclusion Vault, the place where we unlock real conversations that matter for workplaces, communities and society. I'm Dolly, your host, and each episode we explore bold ideas, challenge norms and share practical strategies to drive real change. From boardrooms to break rooms, from policy to personal stories, nothing is off limits. So get ready to think differently, act boldly and open the vault to a more inclusive future. Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Diversity, Equity and Inclusion Vault. We are so glad you've tuned in once again for these amazing and transformative conversations. I'm incredibly excited about today's conversation. My name is Dolly Ngonji, and I am your host. Now, have you ever wondered what the world would look like if we stopped trying to fit everybody in a box, but instead celebrated in the way in which the mind and the brain is wired to think how we can create and how we actually feel? And so today we're going to get into that space. And I'm excited because I've got Pabi Mawela, oh my God, whose passion knows no bounds when it comes to neurodiversity. In fact, she amplifies neurodiversity to a degree where we, start to rethink, and in a manner that challenges us to really question what true inclusion looks like, especially when it comes to neurodiversity. Now, when we often talk about diversity, it's often within the ambit of race, gender, and culture, and often neurodiversity is parked in some corner in the inclusion room. So today, with Pabi Mawela, we are going to unpack how workplaces, communities, and families can start to create places where people are able to not just fit in terms of the way that they actually think, but in a way that they can thrive. Pabi is incredibly passionate about neurodiversity. Truly, she challenges us to rethink how we accommodate people in workplaces, in communities, and families when it comes to neurodiversity. So I'm actually excited because we don't often talk about and unpack matters concerning neurodiversity. So she plays in this space. She's a subject matter expert in this space. She's incredibly passionate about neurodiversity. So everybody help me welcome to the Diversity Vault, my absolute favorite, Pabi Mawela.
Hi, Dolly. Hi, everybody.
Pabs, welcome to the Vault.
Thank you.
I am super excited to have you here.
Thank you.
I think I'm more excited because I know that neurodiversity is your passion.
Yes.
You live it. It's your passion. In fact, it's a burden that you carry.
Yes.
And you really want to take us through a journey of really looking at neurodiversity from a different journey and helping us and empowering us to actually understand this neurodiversity. A lot of people talk about neurodiversity. I think as part of my intro, they talk about neurodiversity, but I don't necessarily think that there's a level of understanding that is entrenched in us. Also, it is quite parked in some corner.
100%.
It's always about race. It's always about gender. It's always about culture. It's always about everything else. But we never really tap into the ways or the different ways in which people actually think and how we can leverage on those differences for people to be able to thrive wherever they are, whether it's in family or work or in the communities that are around us. Now, I'd like for you, perhaps as we start off, to talk to us about what does neurodiversity mean to Pabi from a human level. Now, beyond academia theory, beyond the definitions, from your heart, what does neurodiversity mean to you?
Sure. Thank you for the invite, Dolly. And I think this is a full circle moment for me because it was in this very studio where you were teaching me about diversity, equity, and inclusion. And at the time, I didn't understand and I didn't have full understanding. But I then got to learn about neurodiversity, which for me, in layman's terms, or my understanding, it's people who think differently and people who have superpowers. I refer it refer to it as superpowers because if you think about the nature of these people, how they present themselves, it's not normal, but I say it's normal. It's the way they speak, the way they think, that I feel that it's a superpower that is God-given, that is not easily accepted in this universe that we all exist in.
Yes, that's beautiful. That's amazing. I mean, I think about, and I'm sure you'll take us through this, the different types of neurodiversity.
Yes.
When we talk about the likes of autism and ADHD, I promise you, I think I'm ADHD, Pabi. I meet all of the criteria of being an ADHD. And sometimes it's actually frowned upon because people that are ADHD like me, for instance, so I tend to procrastinate. I don't like deadlines, but I'll make sure that I actually deliver. I'll deliver for you, but I'm not a deadline-y person. And so my way of thinking tends to be different from the mainstream, from the norm. And I think it's that we need to start appreciating that actually 100%. Difference and diversity span beyond just the primary dimensions of race and gender, where you were born, the secondary dimensions and all of that stuff. I'm fascinated by the difference in terms of the brain, the difference in terms of 100%. The mind, the cognitive difference that we present ourselves. Tell us quickly, why do we really have conversations on neurodiversity? Is it because people don't understand it? Or why do we not talk about this topic?
I think because it comes with a stigma, because I think I always think about how I grew up, and I start to realize that there were a lot of neurodiverse people around me and I didn't notice. And they came with a stigma that they are special or they are slower than others or they just don't have a routine or they don't live like we do. But I think now that I've grown and I've tried to educate myself with the different neurodiverse issues, a lot of, I think, Black people. I'll refer to Black people because I know that in other races or communities, there was a little bit of education because of access to, facilities that would educate people. But in our community, dolls, I find that growing up, you'd find that this child was different. And often they'd say, don't play with that child. Or this child, she's crazy. Or, so that I feel came with a lot of not being educated. There's a lack of education, a lack of awareness. And even in these awareness campaigns of neurodiversity, they're just done because they have to be done and they are not intentional. So I think it's basically awareness and education from how I see it.
It's an important aspect you're talking about because often when I think about the different types of neurodiversity, so I often think we're probably stuck in the labels. We're stuck in the labeling of these different types of neurodiversity, and we're not truly embracing people for who they are. Because in all honesty, we are different, and we'll think differently, some more than others. And I think it's really just embracing that. And I often think that maybe the power of this difference is the one that actually creates, different perspectives and these ideas and innovation. It comes from there. And I think the sooner we start embracing that, for the better. It'll work for us. How do we then start to, because I imagine, there's probably a parent that's sitting out there that's got a child who's probably autistic or what's called ADHD and the like, and they're not empowered, right, in terms of how to deal with the child or to empower the child in general. How do we support those parents? What do we say to them to transition from seeing these neurodivergent ways of thinking from a limitation to one of strength? What conversation do we have with that parent?
Okay, so I think I'll refer back to the education part. I think right now the gap is that not enough people are educating people on the topic of neurodiversity. And even if there are some people who are educating people, they are just touching on what it is and not how it can benefit a workplace or schools. So I think it's the way in which we need to teach, right, people. And I think that's where my passion is. I exist on earth to teach people how to remove this concept of neurodiversity being a limitation, because you actually and funny enough, in the workplace we work with neurodiverse people,
100%,
and those are the creative people.
Yes.
Those are the people who speak up in meetings and say things differently
that other people wouldn't ordinarily say.
Very honest, right?
Yes,
And
yes.
I think with more people who are neurodiverse taking part in the workplace, I think it can become something that people will embrace. And another thing, Dolls, is that even with the awareness campaigns, I think the gap is that people are not brought together. So it's just a matter of Pabi telling Dolly from a distance that accept neurodiversity or you are not alone, but bring these people in.
Sure.
Bring them in and hear their perspective and their experience. Then I feel that you will also gain more perspective. And that's what I'm doing.
That.
And you understand how broad.
It's amazing.
It's broad. So yeah, I think it's actually just bringing people in.
I absolutely love that. So essentially what you're proposing is that we create some kind of community group, some kind of resource groups.
100%.
And that's how you're able to tap into the different ways that people think. I mean, I just think that's marvelous. And like I said earlier on, we are going to be different in thought.
We are.
We are. Like in neuroscience will show us. I mean, we are different in thinking. It's amazing. I think about my son. My son hasn't really been diagnosed with ADHD as well. I mean, I've declared that I possibly have it. I also haven't been diagnosed. But when I look at the traits, I'm just like, that's me. And I look at him, he's incredibly intelligent, incredibly hyper. And so he shows all of those, different traits. At home, very outspoken. When he goes out, he's shy, he's sentimental, he cries, all of these things. I'm a perfectionist, OCD. And so in the beginning, I struggled a bit, I think, as a parent. And then until I got to a point where I was like, no, man, like I need to embrace this difference because, in fact, it comes with a lot of strengths in there, and he's doing incredibly amazing. And I would not change my son at all, to be honest, because I think that he adds uniquely to this universe. He adds some kind of uniqueness to school, to his peers, that sets him apart, actually, to also then succeed. Do you have a story of your own, of where you've personally encountered neurodiversity and what it actually means, what it feels at close proximity to you?
I do.
Okay.
I do.
Share with us.
my 6-year-old we recently got a diagnosis, and he's got autism level 1, ADHD, speech impairment. So the list is long, right? Yeah. And obviously this is very new, but before I got to understand what it is, there's a child that I had to learn who was very different, right? Very specific, very particular.
Yes.
You need to stick to a routine, otherwise you frustrate him. The way he speaks, and that's why they say it's a speech impairment. Where I'm like, no, maybe he's just a man with few words, but he's very direct.
I love that.
You understand exactly what he's saying. He'll just choose maybe 3 or 4 words.
I love that, Pabi.
So I think that's where the passion, honestly, Dolly, came from, because then I realized that, wait a minute, I've seen people who we work with who are exactly like Kumo, but often they're put in a corner or they're like, those are the guys. But I'm like, if you actually give yourself time to understand neurodiverse people, then I think you can actually change the narrative. You can assist in changing the narrative. So that's my personal story, Dolls, and I learn from him more than I teach.
I love that.
And I think if we think of it that way, then we'd become better in the neurodiverse space. So we just constantly need to be in the mindset of knowing that we are learning more than we have to teach them. Because now in the workplace, I find that they are forced to be, like, they are taught how to adapt to an environment.
Correct. To fit into that box.
Yes, but where are we learning? Where are we giving ourselves the opportunity to actually learn to actually, create an
100%,
environment
100%,
where they can thrive
100%.
and show up better in the workplace?
That's brilliant. I mean, that's the true essence of inclusion. Inclusion is not a blanket approach.
Yes.
It's not uniform. It's truly wanting to understand people's unique and individual experiences and how people actually show up, and trying as much as possible to actually accommodate them. That's inclusion. That's true belonging.
Exactly.
Do you see me for who I am?
Exactly.
Do you accept me for who I am? Do you create spaces that allow for me to be able to manifest in the way that I actually am? That's true inclusion. I love what you're saying about how you move away from labeling as a parent. And you're saying that, no, perhaps he doesn't actually have a speech impairment. He's just a man of few words. I love that, because what you're doing is that you're taking away the stigma, right? And you are creating some form of normality, which is a form of normality, actually. Because because in my brain and somewhere in my head, to be honest with you, because we are different and we're going to think differently, it's difficult for me to see the level of abnormality when it comes to neurodiversity. I'm just like, but we're normal.
Disability.
Yes, where is that? But I can understand, I think, from an academic point of view, where, some people think differently from the other in how it's actually explained. But when I think about the power of diversity and that it comes with different perspectives, naturally we are going to think differently, some more than others. And so for me, it's the term neurodiversity is really just to create spaces, I suppose, for people's different thoughts, how they create, how they feel, is actually embraced in a workplace. I absolutely love that. I just want to track back a little bit. Yeah. So I know that you're in a space right now where you've appreciated that, okay, your son has got all of these different neurodiversities. But I'm sure there must have been a point at which you found it challenging as a parent 100%. Before you got to a state of awareness and empowerment. Please take us through that process, because I'm also mindful that there's probably a parent that will benefit from your journey that says, what was that space like for you? What were the challenges? And maybe elaborate again on how did you then overcome them? Because I know you're there. I mean, you're now one of the advocates for neurodiversity, and I absolutely love that, because I think it's critical, because you're moving people from a space that thinks that, it's okay to label our kids, to normalizing them and accepting difference and embracing it in the way that it is, which I think is incredibly powerful. Because it's going to get me to my next question on bias and the harm that bias actually has. But I really just want you to tap into, what were those challenges like for you and how did you overcome them? I'm sure you had sleepless nights. I'm sure you cried. I'm sure you blamed yourself for being a bad parent before you actually knew that actually, what did that look like?
Thank you, Dolly, for this question. It's actually an amazing question, because it is a problem in the community where I think my answer could benefit someone, right? So the signs started showing very early in his childhood. And I think you can tell. As a parent, you always know that, especially if at creche or at a play date, you're with another mom with a child who's exactly the same age as your child, and you're like, wait a minute.
Calling it off.
And I think that's when it started kicking in, and then family starts to pick it up, and then they tell you that, hey, I think maybe you should look into this behavior. Or, when he was 2, the tantrums would be exaggerated as opposed to a neurotypical child who would just throw a tantrum.
That's my son.
Were out of frustration, like major frustration. It was insane meltdowns. Yeah. And I had to then, ask myself, what is the problem, right? Yeah. And secretly I would Google to my child symptoms. What is this? When Dr. Google, I'm like, and then Google would say, look, because Google sometimes can be accurate. They're like, no, just check for autism. And then I was like, oh, hell no. I was like, there's no way. So there was a lot of denial in the early stages. And it's because of the stigma. Because growing up, I knew children with autism were special, and I hated the term special
Yeah, I
child,
know.
special
I
class,
know.
and I was like, so my child is
You're
a
special.
special class child, you
Yeah.
know? So that was the one thing I really struggled with until I didn't realize that the more I read was the more I was educating myself. And then it became easier to accept that, oh, okay, so this is actually not a disability.
100%.
The more you read, the more you realize that, no, man.
I've actually seen many other people like this.
You know? And when you watch, like, there's a series that I really love, The Good Doctor.
Yes.
Being one of them. And there's this other movie, which is not about neurodiversity, but it's called Divergent. And then you start to realize that, oh, okay, so when something is not done the typical way,
Correct.
It's considered a
I
disability,
love that.
you know?
I love that.
So then I was like, oh, so I'm blessed
powerful.
enough. I just saw myself in that moment being blessed enough to be trusted with someone with so many superpowers that I referred to in the beginning of this interview to say, oh, okay, so let me nurture this superpower because somewhere, somehow it's going to thrive. So it really comes with a lot of acceptance and education, really. Read about it. Then you'll start to understand that, oh, okay, I know actually friends who have children who I think are neurodiverse, but and the way these children operate in and how they're extremely intelligent.
Incredibly intelligent.
Very beautiful.
Yes.
I'm like,
yes.
if only you can just accept your child with that. So I want to be that mouthpiece and that safe space for parents who or managers or who want to grow this thing that exists in neurodiverse people.
That's amazing, Pabi. As you are explaining this, and thank you for sharing your story. You know, I believe in vulnerability. As you're sharing your story, I think about, I'm like, but I have some of these things. I mean, I go through extremes, okay? So I have extreme mental breakdowns sometimes.
Yeah.
And then an hour later, I'm like, I'm fine.
Yeah.
I'm fine. Yeah. I just needed an outlet, you know? I turned out just fine.
Exactly.
I turned out just fine. And I'm wondering, honestly, if we haven't inflated the labeling of these neurodivergent ways of thinking. I'm wondering if they haven't always existed. Surely they have always existed. But now we've somehow decided to coin labels onto them. And we've kind of inflated them to a degree where we start stigmatizing and we start dealing with people based on bias when it comes to this. And I want us to talk about the impact of these biases against neurodiversity. What is the impact? I mean, what is the possible harm, whether at home with your child, whether in a workplace where I'm restricted from thinking the way that I can only think? What is the harm of these biases against neurodivergent people like me?
Dolly, I love that you refer to yourself because I think I'm like that too, but maybe a little bit opposite because like, I'm hyperactive. I'm very disorganized, but I get something done.
You get things done, yeah.
I'm like, I there's a lot that I can touch on which I can relate to in what you've just said. And how I view the impact of bias when it comes to neurodiversity is that I find that sometimes workplaces have gaps where they're constantly seeking for the next creative person or the next innovative person, where they actually have that already in the workplace, or they're scared to hire someone who is neurodiverse, right? So how I see the impact is that the is it the less or I don't know, the English is running away, but sometimes we are missing out on the opportunity 100%. Of bringing people together 100%. To create the balance 100%. In the workplace. So how I see it is that neurodiverse people, highly creative, highly opinionated, highly intellectual, and you find that you have Pabi, the professional, who is doing things by ticking the box, whereas Pabi, the neurodiverse individual, could be pouring into this Pabi's cup 100%. And vice versa.
Yes.
So I think that's the impact of the bias of neurodiversity in workplaces and schools. Because again, in schools, you find that neurodiverse children are not allowed to take part in sports, or they are excluded from certain extramural activities because they treat them as this fragile thing.
Yeah, you're a special case.
You're a special case,
Yeah.
you know. And on my way to this interview, I was thinking of like an analogy of a box that's just wrapped around in this fragile tape. And that's what is being done to neurodiverse people, where they just in this box and it's fragile. I'm like, no. Give people the room to shine.
Yes.
You never know. So these are the impacts of bias, where neurodiverse people are just put in a box and that's what it is. No, he's too disruptive. No, he's too he's going to embarrass us. But no, sometimes we need to hear these truths in the workplace.
You're too assertive, all of these things.
And if you're a good leader, dolls, you would be willing to embrace it, to listen.
Yes.
Because I find that you become a good leader when you're always in a position to listen rather than to constantly be giving a direction or directive. So I feel that, we need to actually educate teachers, leaders. That's where it starts. We don't have to educate neurodiverse people on how to cope in an environment. We need to teach, it's the inverse. We need to teach the people who are receiving them to cope and to embrace neurodiverse people. So those are the impacts of bias. It's similar to LGBTQI.
A+.
You know? You know what I mean? How long did it take us to reach the level of acceptance and belonging, you know? And it was also because of miseducation. And when you think of it now, they are the people who are bringing in the change, the impact. So bias is a barrier to so many things, unconscious or conscious.
Correct.
Oh, by the way, Dr. Palesa Munzara taught me conscious and
unconscious bias.
So, dolls, I think there's a lot to learn, and I just urge people to not be afraid to be the people who are changing the narrative about the biases and neurodiverse people in general.
Sure, that's amazing. I love this conversation, Pabi. I'm loving it. But I was just thinking, when you're talking about the role of leaders in organizations, I think that's so important, because so when we talk about bias and how it manifests itself within that structure of an organization, we often see this manifesting within what we call affinity bias. Essentially, somebody walks into an interview and they are neurodivergent in that they're hyper in the interview. They think differently than you, according to your standards, right? They think differently. Yeah. And so if you're a leader and you're leading with affinity bias, where you just want to interview and shortlist people that you find resonance with, that are relatable to you, that you like, that think the way that you think. That is what we call affinity bias. Okay. And so when we lead with affinity, because we accept people that we like, we accept people that we can relate to, we accept people that we can resonate with. When we lead with that, that becomes a barrier. It means you're not accepting people fully and truly for who they are. 100%. In fact, to your earlier point, it is so incredibly powerful for somebody to walk into an interview and you look at them and they think differently, and for you to be sobered to the notion that they may bring a different perspective and flavor to my team. 100%. And that is what's going to break and birth innovation. Maybe that is what we need, right, in this team. And so when we begin to think like that, we leverage on the power of different perspectives so that people can actually ideate. I would tap into that as a leader, because what we often do is that we're calling for innovation year after year after year as organizations. No, we encourage you, be innovative, blah, 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 which is great. I mean, organizations need to innovate in order to be sustainable. But when you say that, be prepared to create structures and spaces and environments where people can truly be themselves in order to be able to ideate. And so I just want us to lean into the importance of creating these different structures.
I mean, it could be something different, Pabi. It could be that you've got a group of people who are neurodivergent in an organization. Mm-hmm. It could be that you've got your LGBTQIA plus community. It could be that you've got a resource group for academics. It could be that you've got a resource group for divorced people. It could be that you've got, but essentially you're creating structures and communities or groups of like-minded people that can support each other. So what then is different with neurodiversity? Why treat people differently? Why box them if you do have other differences that you are embracing within the organization itself? I don't know if you have anything to say just to add on to the importance of creating these inclusive spaces for people to be able to thrive in these environments.
Yeah. I think, Dolls, for me, what's very important, number one, I'll start with the topic of BEE.
Yes.
Because, again, neurodiverse people are just, it's a blanket thing of, he's ADHD, so he's disabled. No. Let's separate these disabilities and then let's identify those who are neurodiverse. Not that any other disability group should be segregated, but now we are on the topic of neurodiversity.
Yeah.
And let's see, some of these neurodiverse people are employed by virtue of the company wanting to maximize BEE points, for example.
Yes.
But no one is looking into, okay, so Pabi has ADHD, or how do we leverage on that? So I think that's a starting point, or one of the starting points.
I love that.
And so I just honestly feel that there also needs to be more people who are representing neurodiverse people, so that these topics are discussed more often with the right people. Because I could be having this conversation with someone, but they're not passionate, or they don't care. But I just think that the more we engage in topics like this, and we are speaking about neurodiversity on the right platforms, then the impact can be created in the way that it needs to be.
I agree with you. And also, to your earlier point, maybe when it comes to organizations, creating focus groups.
Yes.
And having conversations.
This is something I'm actually omitting. Sorry, Dolls. And I think the problem is in the workplace, neurodiverse people are put in a group with each other, and it doesn't serve any purpose.
Okay.
So, yes, support groups, but I feel that there should be also some structure or some kind. It needs to be part of the organization's culture.
100%.
To then create groups where neurodiverse people interact 100%. With neurotypical people as often as possible.
Neurotypical are people that we would term normal, for lack of a better, for just a simple description. Yes. I think we're all normal, but anyway,
And you would. I think it would also assist them in neurodiverse people, because a lot of them are socially anxious, but the more they engage and feel like they belong,
they're included and they belong. Yes.
Then I think that's where the impact is.
I think this is such an important conversation to be held, because a lot of people are imprisoned and confined into thinking that they're abnormal. Do you know what I mean? Like it's such a sad phenomenon that as a human being, you can be boxed into thinking that you're not the same, and therefore you don't participate in activities that seem to be normal, where normal people are catered for, and so often feeling excluded. And it's such a dangerous thing. Not only from a human level, but you're really excluding potential. You're excluding potential. You don't know what may come out of that. And it's incredibly, I think it's short-sighted. And I think that's why it's important for us to have these conversations, actually, to say, how do you identify neurodiversity, first of all, but also how do you then leverage on that? If you are in the workplace, how do you listen? How do you engage? So that you can create solutions that are tailored for that. Because oftentimes we fall into the trap of wanting to create solutions for things we don't understand, for problems we don't understand, and we don't really tap into these superpowers. I love the term superpower. I really, really love. That's a Pabi term, by the way. Don't steal it. It's a Pabi term. These are superpowers, right? More than anything else. I'm excited for your journey, Pabi, and I think that you're such an incredibly important mouthpiece for this generation when it comes to neurodiversity. I respect academia. I'm an academic myself. I respect, theoretical views on neurodiversity. To be honest, for me, we're all normal. We just think differently, and we need to embrace one another, and that's it. But I respect the academia that comes with it as well. But I also think that we need more voices like you, because when we have voices like you amplifying the importance of neurodiversity, people start to feel like they belong.
Yes.
People start to feel like, actually, I'm normal. There's nothing wrong with me. And so we need those voices. Tell us a little bit more about now for you and your company, because I really want people to reach out to you to know more. I'm certainly going to be reaching out because I know that I need to learn more. I mean, I've got 3 boys, and so, and they're not all the same. That's the other thing. Our kids are not all the same. Yes. They are neurodivergent. They are neurodivergent. And so how we deal with them depends on, the way that they think. And I think it's so important for us, all, especially as parents, to be intentional in terms of the way that we parent our kids who think and create differently, and not sideline one or the other because we're trying to fit them in this normality box that we have been indoctrinated to believe exists, right? And I actually wanted to say that before you talk about your company, that maybe... look, I mean, in one way or form, we are all biased because there are certain assumptions that have been indoctrinated in us.
True.
So we've been indoctrinated to believe that certain things are the way that they are. We've been indoctrinated to believe that pink is for girls, blue is for boys. If I say to you policeman, you think male. If I say surgeon, you think male. If I say nurse, you think woman. And so these are some of the aspects that have been institutionalized in us to believe, and they're entrenched for a very long time by society, by family, etc. And so neurodiversity is all the way that we think about it, I suppose, is also entrenched in us as well, creating these biases that block the way that we actually view these things. And I think the way that we need to interrupt it is to take a step back to your point and engage and listen and treat people the way that they want to be treated. Because often we say, treat people the way that you want to be treated. No, treat people the way they want to be treated. In that way, you begin to understand the power of their difference. Talk to us a little bit about your company. How can people get a hold of you? When are we having more conversations? What's in the pipeline? What's happening?
Okay. So my company is Leruo Co. It's actually
Leruo Co.
Yes,
I love it. You're actually wearing your brand.
Yes, because neurodiversity.
I love that. What does it mean?
So Leruo, so all my children's names are Kumo, Maruo, Lihumo.
Okay.
So it's just Leruo. It's just the plural.
Brilliant.
And that's the foundation of the company because everything I know about neurodiversity is through my children.
I love that.
And so they are the core of it. So the core of it is neurodiversity, and so that's where it comes from. So it's Leruo Group, and it's broken down into Marua NPC and Leruo Co, which is the corporate side.
Brilliant.
So Leruo focuses on teaching managers about what we've just discussed now and opening their minds, up to, and helping them to create a culture that is inclusive of neurodiverse people. And then Marua NPC is where I engage with mothers who see signs and who are scared to accept or to speak up to say this is the challenge that I'm going through. So Marua speaks to that, and it's more of an NPC. And so also at Leruo, we also engage with neurodiverse individuals who are getting ready for the workplace. And what we do is we teach them etiquette because yes, there's a little bit of learning that they need to do, but we prepare them for the workplace where we engage together with the workplace that they are being prepared for, and them
it's important
to say, okay, this is Pabi, they're coming to join you. Pabi is like this, but please also equip yourself. Please,
I love that, Pabi.
This is what you should do. Pabi prefers this. Pabi would thrive if. So that's what we are working on. It's a fairly new company. So 1 November is the official launch.
Love it. Well done.
Thank you. And I think all of the details will be across social media.
I am so proud of you, Pabi.
Thank you.
This is such an important, it's such an important, I don't want to call it an initiative because an initiative is almost like an event, right? It's an important focus area. It's an important priority not only for our country, but for people, for communities, for workplaces, for families, Pabi, more than anything else. It is such an important conversation to have. I think about how you could partner with organizations when it comes to their onboarding, you know, when they're onboarding people,
Yes.
and the workplace readiness that you're actually talking about. For me, it's that inclusion, the start of engagement, the start of those conversations. Because when you're intentional as an organization, you bring a Pabi in to talk about the importance of neurodiversity and how to respect each other within that, and how to equip and empower people to be able to thrive in a different environment than what they probably used to. So I think that what a time to be alive. I think it's absolutely amazing, and know that you're going to do so well. Where do people get hold of you? Are you up and running in the socials?
Yes.
Okay.
We're up and running.
That's
so
amazing.
on Instagram, it's Leroy Core or Leroy_Core. Yes.
Okay.
That's what it is.
We'll feature it
We'll
there.
feature it. Sorry.
Yeah.
And then on LinkedIn, we're not up yet, but by the 1st of November, we should be up on LinkedIn, as well as Facebook as well. We'll be there. So we're just building in the background, but 1 November is the official launch date.
Yeah, that's brilliant. And then just to end off, so for a parent or for a leader, parent that has children, leader that's leading people, what are sort of like the behaviors that they need to look out for that could help them identify neurodiversity? So what are those kind of behaviors? How do people typically behave in a way where a parent or a leader can say, let me take a back seat here. This is this and this. Just take us through. I know we spoke about autism and ADHD. I'm not sure if there are others that you can perhaps mention for us. What are those, and what sort of behaviors can we look out for?
So I think schools are assisting a lot. I'll speak to parents first. Schools are assisting, I think maybe creche, I'll say creche, and I think early foundation phase. Yeah. They are very, teachers have become aware.
Yes.
So what they do is in the way they report back to parents, then they say, okay, Pabi has fine motor skills issues, or we're picking up that he can't tie his shoelaces, or that he is disruptive in class, he's constantly banging away, concentration levels are low. So parents need to start looking out for these issues that teachers are picking up, and not put them or sweep them under the carpet, or feel that they can resolve this on their own. And parents need to get into the habit of accepting help.
Yes.
Because that's another thing. It's pride to say, we can do this. No. Get the help that you need. So there's a lot of behavioral. There's also dyslexia. Where children can't write or can't see words properly. And I believe now that, and I love this, schools have incorporated children having scribers in mainstream schools, where the scriber's writing what the learner's saying. So even in the workplace, dyslexic people are not hired much, but there are resources that are available. So even in the workplace, when you find that someone is said to be outspoken or highly opinionated or socially anxious, or the list is long,
so powerful,
or very talkative, then they say this employee is disruptive, and this employee is constantly getting warnings, and they too can't explain that. Look, I've got others don't disclose that that they're neurodiverse. So we first need to create the safe space of allowing people to disclose that they are neurodiverse.
Yes, I love that.
Because I'm finding that there's a lot, or some people are just not aware.
Yes, that they are. Yes, like me. I'm now aware.
You see, so these are the things that we aim to do as Leroy, to say, okay, we are here. Let us engage with the employees. Let us do our research for you. And let us come up with the statistics. And let us then assist you with coming up with solutions to then create the safe space for your employees, and so forth.
I love that, Pabi. And so I imagine you also come in when it comes to policy review.
Yes.
You review policies that serve as barriers to creating inclusive spaces 100%. For neurodivergent people, which I think is very important. It's one thing to have running initiatives, but if there's no systemic base in terms of inclusive policies, it's something else. So you come in, you look at those, and you're like, this is where we can provide reasonable accommodation.
100%. Yeah. So we actually have an AI tool that assists with that, because if you think about it, in this day and age, we don't have time to be like, wrong, right? So our AI tool then does that to say, okay, it does not include a policy for ADHD. But before we even reach the policy, then that's why we have to do the research with your employees to say, okay, this, according to statistics, this is the challenge and the gap. Then the policy is then reviewed and altered according to the gaps.
Yeah. And I think it's such a need. I think you talk about employees then being able to be well positioned to disclose. It's one thing to disclose, but if the environment is not safe, people are not going to disclose. And perhaps where you also come in is to help organizations create awareness
100%.
and sensitize people on what neurodiversity is, the different types, and so that people are actually aware of these, because they can't disclose something that they're actually not aware of. And so that's where you come in and you say, guys, this is by definition neurodiversity. These are the different types. This is how they manifest themselves. And supporting leaders in terms of interrupting biases that are linked to these neurodiversities. That's absolutely amazing. I have learned so much. I truly walk away from this conversation having learned more than what I actually came in with. Also, I realized that I'm neurodivergent. Like when I listen to some of these descriptors, I'm like, but that's me, and I turned out perfectly fine. So it's really just to truly embrace that. And the other thing for me, that I found intriguing is the report card from school you're talking about. Because honestly, I've seen in my son's report where the teachers are like, no, he gets disruptive. And then I just have a conversation with him that says, stop being disruptive at class. And that's that. And so, Kanti, there may be underlying issues that I need to be aware of pertaining my son. So I've learned so much, Pabi. That is absolutely amazing. Here at the Vault, we wish you all the best. And of course, I mean, we will continue to support the body of work that you actually do. Thank you for being a spokesperson and a beacon and an advocate and a champion for matters of neurodiversity. I know that you will continue to amplify neurodiversity and the importance of including people beyond race, beyond gender, but also in making sure that we include people in terms of the way that they think, they feel, in terms of the way that they actually create. I think there's a lot of space that we need to hold for that. What is your parting shot? What would you like to say to a parent, to a workplace, community members? What is your last sense of, your last words that you'd like to share as we close off this podcast?
I think it's very short. My parting shot is very short. I think people need to start getting into the habit, or in fact, the habit of willing to learn. If you are willing to learn, then you view things differently.
100%.
And you can accept easily. So I think that is my parting shot, to learn, not to teach. For a minute, take a minute to learn. And I think that can make a major difference worldwide.
I hope you guys have enjoyed this session as much as we have. I walk out of here truly feeling edified and empowered in this space. And I really hope that you'll listen to this over and over again and also share it. There might be a parent who can benefit from this conversation. There might be a teacher. There might be a leader who could possibly benefit from this conversation. I thoroughly enjoyed it. And I urge you, to Pabi's charge and provocation, to look at these differences as superpowers rather than sticking to just labeling people. Let's all embrace one another. There's so much power in difference. There's so much power in just embracing each other's differences in terms of the way that we actually think. So continue to learn, as she says, continue to enhance your skill set when it comes to neurodiversity. But your first stop and your first start in terms of learning is with Pabi. So please do follow her. We have submitted the details in terms of where you can actually follow her and get to hear more about the work that she does in this space. I for sure am going to be one of those people. Take care. Thank you so much for spending your time with us. Until next time, thank you for joining us.